I'm gonna give an update while I feed these guys. Okay, so Wyatt went to the dental specialists this morning. The office is called VDS. Buddy, you gotta actually move here. There we go. Oh boy. All right, so they're called VDS. They have 5 different dentists and 5 different anesthesiologists. So they took a look at Wyatt this morning. Actually, many different doctors took a look at Wyatt. And we learned a couple of things. So when they checked out his mouth, what they saw was that the right side of his mouth seems to be kind of malformed. They can't say exactly why. They suspect maybe some sort of trauma when he was born, maybe a fracture to his jaw, something maybe that happened during his birth. Could have easily happened in the birth canal itself. But it could also be something congenital, you know, something that that happened during the development of his body in utero. So, you know, they couldn't say exactly what the malformation was or what had caused it, especially, you know, not having any sort of imaging or, you know, further diagnostics that they could run. So, but, you know, they could see that largely the problem is with him closing his mouth is on the right side of his jaw. It seemed like the left side actually looked pretty well formed. So another really obvious thing that they saw when they looked in his mouth is that on his right side is that his teeth are misaligned. And one of the things that has happened is when Wyatt was first born, up until he was about 4 weeks old, his original foster said that his jaw was pretty pliable. She was able to move it very easily up and down. And, you know, it was very flexible. Since I've had him at 5 weeks, his jaw has actually been pretty rigid. And if you try to close his jaw, if you try to just push up and close his jaw, you actually hit resistance and you're not able to close his jaw. So that happened somewhere around 4 weeks or so, that limitation. What the dentist saw was that his teeth are misaligned, and so the teeth are actually butting up against one another. So when you try to close his mouth, there is at least one tooth on the right hand side that's actually in the way, preventing his jaw from closing all the way. So even if his jaw had no trauma and he had no other issues going on, he still would not be able to close his mouth because of at least one tooth being misaligned in the way. So so that is a that's our one definite diagnosis. We know that there is at least one tooth that needs to be removed. If we even have hope that he'll be able to close his mouth and maybe eat on his own. So, so they did try to, it's a baby tooth. So baby teeth are made to fall out. They typically fall out on their own between 4 to 6 months old. But they're not, just biologically, they're not made to be permanent teeth. And so they're typically kind of wiggly. So the dentist actually did try to like knock on the tooth a bit and see if they could actually just kind of knock it out and wiggle it out without putting him under anesthesia. Unfortunately, it was not loose enough to be able to do that safely. So he will need to be put under anesthesia in order to have that tooth removed. The same story applies to Wyatt having a tooth removed as all of the other specialists we've seen, in that, he's only 12 ounces. Anesthesia at his size and age, being only 7 weeks old, is very, very risky. And unless he was having some sort of major crisis or life-threatening episode, we really don't want to put him through that risk of anesthesia unnecessarily. So we are going to wait, and he needs to grow in order for us to be able to more safely, there is always a risk, but more safely put him under anesthesia to remove that tooth. It's possible that if he's big enough and it's safe enough, that we could also have a CT scan done during the same time that he has the tooth removed, to try to see if there's any other underlying issues going on. But the main priority is getting that tooth removed, so there's at least the possibility of him being able to close his mouth. And the hope is that when that tooth is removed, that might be the only thing that's preventing him from closing his mouth. And maybe by removing that tooth, he might be able to start eating on his own. Maybe some wet food, maybe being able to lap it up a bit, or at least be able to keep his mouth closed long enough to swallow. So that's sort of the like pie in the sky hope, is that by removing the tooth, we can get him to start eating solid food on his own. There's no guarantees that is going to fix it, but it definitely is the first step in trying to solve some of these issues with his mouth. The anesthesiologist whom I met with at VDS said that ideally she was looking at him being around 14 to 16 weeks old before we put him under anesthesia. Around the 16-month-old age is when a kitten's cardiovascular system moves from sort of very rudimentary neonate version to a more mature pediatric version. And it's right around that 4-month mark when at least from a heart perspective, that anesthesia becomes much safer for a kitten. So that is not weight-based, that's age-based. He's 7 weeks old now. So, we're looking at possibly waiting another 7-8 weeks to do that surgery. If he continues to take the tube and manage well being tube fed, continues to gain weight, doesn't fight the tube to the point that I'm not able to tube feed him, as long as he continues to do well being tube fed, and we can get him to that 14 to 16 week age, then we would move ahead with removing his tooth, one or more, possibly doing a CT scan of his jaw at the same time. Also possibly giving him the bilateral enucleation at the same time, which is removing his eyes. It's possible we can loop that in. One of the things that we discussed was sort of the priority of his conditions. So Wyatt saw the neurologist yesterday, who is also waiting for him to get bigger to perform some brain scans. So a CT scan of his head and an MRI of his brain to see if there are any neurological abnormalities that might be contributing to some of the conditions that he has going on. And so the question is, we know that we have to put him under at least twice. We need to do it with the dentists to deal with the tooth extraction and possibly a CT scan of his jaw. And we have the neuro team who wants to put him under for the MRI and a CT scan of his brain. The eye removal can happen probably in either one of those cases. And so what's the priority? We don't want to obviously give him anesthesia, too many times. We want to try to limit the amount of times that we have him under, and we also need to spread out the times that he goes under. So, we don't want to put him under and then a week later put him under again. So when it comes to priorities, right now, the jaw malformation and being able to eat on his own is a higher priority than any sort of neurological issues that he might have going on. Being able to eat solid food on his own would be a tremendous win for his nutrition and growth. And so I think, moving forward, our first priority is going to be getting him big enough for the tooth extraction. Even though we're going to continue following up with Dr. Glass and monitoring him for any sort of increased neurological activity or any sort of discomfort or issues that he might develop, we'll continue to play it by ear. So things might could always change in a moment's notice, but at this point in time, at least, he doesn't seem to be in any neurological distress, and there isn't a sense of urgency to have those tests done right away. So, I was at VDS for 2.5 hours, spoke to many different doctors. They have actually been watching Wyatt on the live stream. They found our website and found the live stream. They found our Facebook page. So they had oriented themselves on Wyatt's condition pretty thoroughly before we even got there for his appointment today. They were aware of the fact that we track his weight every day. They had seen his weight chart. They had seen him play with the other kittens um, and run around with them. And so, you know, they had a good sense of his general abilities before I even, you know, described anything. So, so hello to everyone at BDS who's following him. They are very interested in his case and incredibly friendly and thorough people there. And I had a really, really good experience there this morning. So I think, you know, we don't have anything scheduled as far as next steps go. It's really just I mean, they want me to just keep them updated through text and email, just how he's doing. But I haven't scheduled anything for him yet until we get closer to that 14 to 16 week age. So, I felt hopeful. Oh, one last thing is they did check his swallow reflex. And although they couldn't say for sure if he can swallow, they felt like the way that he was using his tongue when they did sort of testing and as they checked his gag reflex and things like that, that he did respond appropriately as if he can swallow. So although I personally have not experienced him swallowing, so when I tube feed, he's not swallowing the tube, but typically you can feel a kitten, you know, they have an instinct when they have something at the back of their throat, they swallow, and so you can feel them sort of swallow the end of the tube, and he's not doing that for me. Which is why I didn't think that he was capable of swallowing, but it sounds like from the testing that the dentist did today that he should be capable of swallowing, and he does have some reflexes that indicate that he might be capable of that. So so that was promising news. Again, it's not 100% certain, but sort of, you know, early signs are pointing to the ability to be able to do that. So yeah, so that's our hope again, is maybe just removing this tooth will at least be able to, he'll be able to, they did notice that he's able to move his jaw on his own. He does actually move it up and down. He's not able to fully close it because, again, that tooth definitely is preventing that. But he's able to widen and shorten his jaw, the bottom half of his jaw, on his own. And so there is definitely some promise that, and some hope that removing this tooth might resolve the issue with him closing his mouth. Fingers crossed, that would be amazing. Again, we could also get to the point where he's like 4 months old and that tooth is so wiggly that they're able to just knock that out without even putting him under anesthesia. That's also a possibility. So, oh, buddy. Oh, we got some pukies. Okay? All right. False alarm. All right, I think I'm done with my update. Is there anybody, I'm looking at chat now, if anybody has any questions. I'm gonna get his tube ready. It was actually Dr. Enders, his ophthalmologist, who recommended that we go to this dentist office. Yeah, I really love actually the staff there. I'm excited to work with them. I'm just gonna tube feed him off camera right now while I watch for any questions. Oh, blowout. Blowout. I need to come back with another tube. I need to come back with another tube. This one's done for. All right, I don't see any questions in chat for me to answer about his visit, so thank you very much, Nutty, for the CC. I will be clipping this in case anyone missed it. I'll also be making a post on social media with a picture of him at his vet appointment today with one of his doctors, and a full update on there. So in case you missed anything, check those things out. All right, thanks everyone. I'm just gonna go grab, actually I'll bring him with me. I have more next door. Okay, buddy, let's go next door. She's dead. I'll bring him right back.